The spiritual meaning of visiting a grave after the soul has departed. Light up faith. Most people visit grave for the wrong reason. They think they're going to find someone who is gone. But what if the real reason your heart is pulled toward that place is because God is waiting to meet you there? There are moments in life when logic cannot explain the tug you feel in your chest. You know the soul is no longer there. You know the stone is silent. And yet something inside you whispers going on, loudly, not dramatically, but persistently. This is not curiosity. This is not superstition. And it is not weakness. That it is the moment God begins to awaken you to a deeper understanding of love, loss, and eternity. Standing before a grave does not mean you're clinging to the past. It means your spirit is waking up to a truth most people avoid. Death does not end meaning. It reveals it. Scripture tells us clearly, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. The soul you loved is not beneath the ground. They're not trapped. They're not wandering. They're fully alive in the presence of God. Oh, why does the grave still matter? Because God uses physical places to awaken spiritual truths. All throughout the Bible, God ties remembrance to transformation. Altars were built. Stones were stacked. Places were marked. Not because God needed reminders, but because people did. When Israel crossed the Jordan, God commanded them to set stones in the riverbed, not to worship the stones, but to remember what God had done there. That a grave works the same way. That it is not a residence for the soul. That it is a witness, a testimony, that a silent proclamation that says, a life was lived here. God breathed here. God loved here. And when you stand in that place, something begins to shift inside you. That first, you feel the ache, the silence, the weight of what is no longer physically present. But then, if you allow God, the ache turns into clarity. You begin to realize you're not there to reach the dead. You are there to let God reach the parts of you that never healed. Grief does not disappear. That it transforms. And God meets you in that transformation. Memory begins to rise, not as torment, but as sacred evidence. Ordinary moments suddenly feel holy. Laughter becomes a treasure. Conversations you once rushed now feel priceless. This is not pain returning. This is love being refined. The Bible never condemns remembrance. That it sanctifies it. David remembered. Job remembered. Jesus himself wept at a tomb. Not because he doubted resurrection, but because love responds to loss. When you visit a grave, you are not violating faith. You are practicing it. You are acknowledging that love mattered. That time mattered. That God was present in a story that did not end the way you wanted. And in that quiet place, God speaks, not with thunder, but with truth. You did not lose them. You released them. Release them into my care. Release them into eternity. Release them into a place where death has no authority. And slowly, painfully, gently, your heart begins to breathe again. You start to understand something sacred. The grave is not meant to pull you backward. It is meant to send you forward. Forward with gratitude instead of regret. Forward with memory instead of denial. Forward with hope instead of fear. Because honoring a life is not the same as clinging to it. When you stand before a grave, you are not worshiping a body. You're thanking God for a gift. Every soul is intentional. Every relationship is permitted by heaven one enters your life by accident. Parents, grandparents, spouses, friends. Each one carried something God used to shape you. Even if the relationship was imperfect, complicated, or painful, Scripture commands us to honor, and honor does not expire at death. It evolves. You begin to see that what you miss is not just their presence, but their impact, their prayers, their sacrifices, their influence that still echoes in who you are becoming. And suddenly, regret loosens its grip because gratitude replaces it. You stop focusing on what you didn't say and start honoring what was shared. You realize God is not asking you to move on. He is teaching you how to move forward and right. There, beside a cold stone in a quiet field, healing begins, not loudly but deeply. Grief needs a place to breathe. The world expects you to be strong too quickly, productive, functional, quiet. But God does not rush grief. He receives it. The grave becomes one of the few places where pretending feels unnecessary, where tears are not embarrassing, where silence feels honest. People in Scripture grieved openly. They wept, they tore garments, they sat in dust, and God did not rebuke them that He met them there. When you stand before a grave, you are not speaking to the dead. You are speaking before God. You are saying what you never finished saying, releasing what you never got to release, admitting the pain you try to carry alone. And God listens, not because the grave is holy, but because surrender is. Grief becomes sacred when it is placed in God's hands. And something else happens there, something unexpected. Perspective. You begin to see beyond the moment of loss into the story of generations. Scripture constantly points backward to move people forward. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Faith did not begin with you, and it will not end with you. Someone prayed before you. Someone endured before you. Someone believed when you now benefit. Even broken lives are not wasted by God. Standing at a grave reminds you that God has been faithful longer than your pain, and He'll be faithful beyond it. You start to feel a quiet calling rise within you, to live in a way that honors what came before. Not perfectly, but faithfully. Love does not end at death. God designed love to reflect His nature, eternal. That ache you feel is not weakness. It is evidence of real connection. Death can end presence, but not impact. It can silence voices, but not love. When you visit a grave, you are not refusing to let go. You are acknowledging that love still lives, just differently now. And finally, standing there, hope begins to rise, because the grave is not just a reminder of mortality. It is a promise of resurrection. Jesus stood before a tomb and declared, "I am the resurrection and the life." That declaration echoes through every cemetery on earth. This is not the end. Bodies rest, souls live, and one day, graves will open as you walk away changed, still grieving, but not hopeless, still aching, but anchored. The grave stays behind, but God walks with you. And if this message stirred something in your spirit, if it brought comfort, clarity, or healing, subscribe to Light Up Faith. Share this with someone who needs hope. And remember, God is not done writing your story. Even here, even now, even after loss.